Welcome to the Box Score Sports Podcast.
Let's go on to our ugly then. And Chris, why don't you start us off then with our ugly?
I guess the default then, the ugly would have to be the Vikings because they won 14 games and then they put up, what was it, 9 points? Am I misremembering that? Or was
No,
it
you're
nine?
right. Yeah.
Yeah, nine points in a neutral field, technically playoff game.
Yeah.
And uh, Darnold, I mean, I guess ugly you could even expand this to Sam Darnold himself
Yeah. Now
because the
shots are
last
being
the
fired.
last
Yeah.
the last two games have lost him a lot of money on the free agent market. And I know some of the all 22 film guys like Nate Tyson or whatever were trying to, say it wasn't all his fault, which obviously, that's fair. It's a team game. But I'm sorry, when 9 sacks happen and he's standing in the pocket for most of them, that's a lot on him as far as I see it. So really ugly performance overall by the Vikings. Justin Jefferson, I think, had 57 yards receiving, which, he's supposed to be the best receiver in the league. So, that's obviously partially Darnold too, but, just ugly performance all around.
Yeah. You predicted that Naylor, right? Would have a impact.
I said Oliver. I,
Oliver.
I thought
Well,
they should get Oliver involved. The Hawkinson actually had their only touchdown, so,
yeah.
that's what I know. I think he
Yeah.
was the leading receiver close to it.
Yeah. He had 64 yards. Yeah, he was leading. Yep. Jefferson 57. Yeah, Clint, what do you got to say for your guy?
Yeah. So my ugly was going to be Sam Darnold.
Okay.
There was a point in the third quarter where his EPA was -1, which means the Vikings literally would have a better play of just him snapping the ball and spiking it than running a play with Sam Darnold.
That's not good.
I mean, that was one of those stats where I'm like, I'm going to save this because this is like I'll use this forever. Just disappointing in both Sam Darnold because I don't think he's actually that bad, and he obviously isn't as good as he was in some of those games.
Yeah.
But he played like hot garbage, not getting rid of the ball. Like 4 of those sacks, he's just standing there for 7 seconds, and then decides to jog back 7 more yards to take a sack, and then you got to punt. But also the coaching, because the Vikings run a lot of deep routes, which takes some time, which the Lions obviously knew, and the Rams caught on to. Where's the rhythm throw? Where's the get it out of his hand quick? They did it for a drive and they got down for the field goal. I think he dumped it off 3 or 4 straight times for 7, 8 yards, and then they kind of went away. So it's a combination of playing like hot garbage when it matters most and kind of not maybe adjusting your system a little bit to what the last 2 teams have obviously figured out about you. But yeah, Sam Darnold, I think he's hoping for the Baker Mayfield contract now, which is still great. Cry me a river, $30 million a year. But he was probably looking for 40 to 50. And maybe we should have put J.J. McCarthy in the great because he was probably dancing on the sideline that he's got a job now next year.
Well, it's funny because we say that, but maybe there'll be a team desperate enough to be like, we'll give you like the Raiders or some team like that. They'll just throw the money at Darnold. But I do agree. He had a 13.6 QBR. He had a rough game, just a rough game. And I agree. Like, I think everybody's at fault. The quarterback kind of gets most of the blame. Like, even the defense, like, where was Brian Flores' defense? Like the run game was there. Stafford had a really good game. So even the defense didn't really show up. I was listening to a podcast and they were like the feeling around the Vikings locker room before, like after the Lions game, it broke them. And you kind of I wish I knew that last week, and the coaching having zero, our coach of the year not having any adjustments at all from last game to this game or this first half to second half is crazy to me. So yeah, I like that as an ugly for the week. But yeah, let's talk about the intentional grounding call, or that's my kind of ugly. This is kind of becoming like the catch rule in the NFL, where nobody actually knows what intentional grounding is anymore, and they break the spirit of the rule, so to speak. Where like a guy like the other week where Goff threw it and he was in the end zone. I think I'm a Lions fan. That probably should have been intentional grounding. However, because Jahmyr Gibbs was close by and there was a tight end close by, like 5 yards, he wasn't really throwing to either of them. But the receiver in the vicinity. So now you have like this extreme version where Matthew Stafford like chucks it sideways at the
Mhm.
feet. Like no chance of that ball ever being caught. And it's like,
Mhm.
oh, I mean, he was throwing it, so it shouldn't have been a fumble.
Mhm.
But I think that should have at least been intentional grounding. They got to fix that rule because I don't know what else you call that. There's no way. I don't know. What do you guys think of uh, the intentional grounding no call / fumble?
CJ Stroud had one too, where he was like on the verge of generously being considered out of the pocket and just
Oh yeah, that's
threw it.
right.
Yeah,
Yep.
near no.
That would
Yeah.
have been a safety too, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
know if he was either in the end zone or like at the one.
Mm.
Yeah.
I feel like and Goff's one was in the end zone too,
Yes.
wasn't it, or way
Yep.
back there?
Yep.
So I feel like they get a little extra generous and don't want to call it in that
Yeah.
regard. But I do think it used to be worse. They've improved it, so you can't just chuck the ball to avoid a sack.
Mhm.
But especially the Stafford one, like, okay, yes, he flicked his hand forward, so don't call it a fumble. But that's literally, I know Puka Nacua is like 4 yards away.
Mhm.
It literally had no chance.
Right.
Either just call it a sack, like he's in the grasp, he's going down. They used to call that
Mhm.
more too, in the grasp, like he's being held. Or it's got to be intentional grounding, because if you can just fall to the ground and then flick it to the running back who's just blocking because he's 3 yards from you, you're like, all right, come on. I do think they need to crack down on it because they get a little generous at times of, oh yeah, he was close to out of the pocket. We got
Mhm.
computers, guys. Put the lines on the field and be like, cool. New York buzzed in. He wasn't outside of the pocket.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Chris, anything to add?
Yeah, I think you're right what you said about they're reluctant to call that a safety because it's kind of the same thing like when the quarterback gets sacked on like the half-yard line, like he gets hit like at the goal line and like gets sacked 5 yards deep in the end zone. They go, well, the forward progress was at the 1 yard line or the half-yard line. It's like, okay, when he's 6 yards deep in the end zone when the play is over with, like that's a safety. Like, come on. But they like very rarely will actually call it that. Um, I mean, I think you guys are right. Probably by the definition of the rule, it was a pass. But even though I hate the Vikings, I was like, my philosophy with these sort of things, like if it's a fun play or a cool play, like we can kind of just get a little gray area in there. I thought it should have been a fumble. Just
Okay.
I think you should be able to get away with that nonsense where it's like he like flicked his hand forward like backwards like a shuffle pass and it went right into the dirt and they go, well, technically that was a pass. I don't know.
Yeah.
It,
No.
it looked like a fumble live. So let's just stick with a fumble. That was my take on it. But I know
Yeah.
you guys are probably technically right.
Right. And I'm not disputing that, but if they wanted to be like, hey, that next time is a fumble. You can't do that. I totally agree. That I would rather have that too, because then you're forced to take the sack. But in that situation, you could see like, okay, but it at least has to be intentional grounding. That like
Yeah.
that's at the very least, or like Clint said, he was already headed to the dirt. Just give them a sack, because the one intentional grounding I don't like that they call, and I don't know if I've seen it. I think I've seen it once this year, is where like the receiver and the quarterback, they're not on the same page. So like the receiver will do like a curl route and he thinks, oh, he's doing a fly and he'll throw it downfield and clearly the quarterback's not under pressure, and then they'll be like, that's intentional grounding. It's like, no, clearly the quarterback and receiver were just not on the same page. They'll call that, but then this thing where it's like, oh, guy was 5 yards away from it almost rolled to his feet. I guess we'll call that a pass forward, no intentional grounding. I just don't get it. Yeah.
Yeah, there was one in the when the 49ers played the Bears. They reversed it. It would have been a touchdown. But Caleb Williams, it was close to the tuck rule. But as he tucked it, then the ball went backwards.
Mm-hmm.
And the 49ers picked it up, and the ref called it incomplete. And, which was always my thing with the tuck rule is, okay, his arm's going forward, but like specifically Tom Brady, the ball is now going backwards. Like it's coming in. So if he just lets it go, it's then a lateral. It's a fumble. So he gets hit while it's going backwards. I'm like, I think they need to be a little more judicious and let some of those go. Like I get the arm, but when the arm is coming down, now it's just going to be a backwards pass if he lets it go. Or if it goes straight down, that's technically a lateral. It should just let it go.
Yeah. I think we got to help these defenses out. I think Bill Belichick was kind of complaining about it on the Manning cast yesterday. I'm like, you go, Bill. It's like, come on. Like, I even think like they got to change offensive pass interference. Like, that's got to be a loss of down. The play was almost over anyway, and then they interfere. It should be a loss of down plus 10 yards penalty. So let's help the defense out. Good. Okay, anything else on... Thanks so much for watching this clip of the Box Score Sports Podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to our channel. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter or X. And we'll talk to you guys real soon. See ya.